The bear was walking between our tents. Where my head is. Imagine if it just tripped, I would have died. Our journey begins as any good journey begins in the year of 2019. How the world looked differently back then. I was just a wee freshman in high school with big hopes and dreams for life, and I had been given the opportunity to go to a scouting ranch called Philmont in North New Mexico. And I was gonna do it too, but well, you know how the story goes. Just as I was about to go on the trail, well, the trail caught on fire. Yep, there was a big old crown fire in New Mexico. But fear not, weary traveler, for finally, in the year of 2021, me and my crewmates were able to embark on the greatest adventure we'd ever been on. So we finally got permission to go into this really cool adventure, and now we had to train. And train we did. You have to train or else you will not be allowed, you will die. It started with Saturday morning hikes, walking up and down the hilly neighborhood side. Oh, how I missed those hikes. For the trail only gets harder from there. Over the course of the months leading up to it, we made sure to hydrate. We made sure that we were walking with our backpacks on. In addition to these early Saturday morning hikes, which were just about 5 miles, we would have what's called a shakedown campout. Now these shakedown campouts are what can only be described as hell. Actual hell. Like, the real thing. The reason that it was so hellish is because the time of training is early summer in Texas, which is where I'm from. Texas likes to do this thing where it rains and then it gets super hot. So there's just a bunch of water in the air. Sweating, drenched, exhausted. So my viewpoint on what this journey was going to be was not optimistic, but I accepted that it was going to be a challenge. And so finally, after months of training, the summer of 2021, me and my crewmates set our sights northernly towards a town called Cimarron, New Mexico, which held the base camp of Philmont Scouting Ranch. An epic journey it would be indeed, but first, some lighthearted entertainment. You see, the drive from Texas, not including the Panhandle, all the way up to New Mexico is a very long one, and so to make sure that we got there comfortably and weren't exhausted, we decided to make a little side-stop day trip out of it and stop at Palo Duro Canyon. And if you've never been to Palo Duro Canyon and you're from Texas, what are you doing? I've decided that the only way you can be a true Texan, and I know most people aren't Texans, so just bear with me here, is if you go to Palo Duro Canyon. Because in Palo Duro Canyon, there's something called Texas the Musical. Alright, here is as fast as I can describe Texas the Musical rant about Texas the Musical. It has a actual real-life lightning strike in it. It has absolutely no relevance to actual Texas history, and if it does, it shouldn't matter. I don't think it's racist, so that's a plus. There are lots of dancers, lots of singing, and there's some barbershop quartetting too. Sorry, I feel like I glazed over this. There's a real-life lightning strike that happens atop a ridge on the other side of the canyon, because it's down in the canyon. And then at the end of it, all the people are dancing and singing, and it's like red, white, and blue, and fireworks, and whiskey, and it's passionate. I became passionate about this musical, which is really good because besides that feature, I would never suggest going to Palo Duro Canyon midsummer. It was hot as balls. After our night's stay at Palo Duro Canyon, we made our way finally up to the scouting ranch of Philmont. If you're familiar with scouting at all, you probably have heard of Philmont. It's a giant high adventure range, which basically means in scouting terms that unlike your average camp out, that's probably, oh, I saw a snake, oh, I saw a coyote. No, a high adventure means that you could see anything. You could see bears, you could see mountain lions, you could fall off a cliff, you could get struck by lightning, and your chances of all that happening increase greatly. And I'm not gonna lie to you, a lot of those things actually happened while I was on the trail. So we actually get to camp, and we get to hang out at base camp for I think a day or two, just making sure that we had everything and we were prepped. And then the day came that we had to take our final shower for 2 weeks. Yes, we didn't shower the entire time because bears can smell your soap. When that time came, we finally hit the trail. That's right, our motley crew was ready to tackle the wilderness, hands in fist, kind of. You see, the first 2 days of Philmont, you actually have a guide helping you out to make sure you're not going in completely clueless and blind. A lot of this training included stuff about bear procedures. We have to tie up anything that smells at night, so if a bear comes, it'll go to that and not us. We also learned about something called a red roof, which is our bathroom situation that I did not know about until I was actually on the trail, and the entire time training had been expecting to dig holes every time I had to go. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. Red roof inns are what they're called. They're literally just red outhouses. Their only rule is that you can't go number 1 in them, you can only go number 2. And the reason for that is if you go number 1, it'll attract bears, and then you'll have a poo bear. It'll dig its way underneath. No fun. Wouldn't want to run into any of those. We also, while I'm on the subject, I guess, for some sort of levity out there in the woods, we actually had this thing where we name every time we went number 2. We named that after a movie. Let me show you. I suppose now is as good a time as any to bring out this bad boy. I actually documented the entire experience in the woods using this little journal here, and I wasn't gonna bring it out, but it's the only way I can remember these Trek names, which are golden, by the way. The name of the Trek dumps is as follows. Star Wars, A New Hope. That was my first one. Bird Box, there was a bird in the box. Big, classic. Kung Fu Panda 1. Oh, skadoosh. The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. Anyways, we also learned about water filtering. Use the filter properly on our water bottles to make sure we weren't getting any E. coli in our systems. Use it for cooking, and you use it for personal use. You also use it for cleaning. Anyways, the first few days of our trek were a breeze. We started off at 6 Mile Gate, where we actually got to see one of the only T-Rex prints in America, which was really interesting. We then slept at House Canyon, followed by Chase Cow, which was a staff camp where we got to do some climbing and bouldering. We played a game called Cowball, but looking over the rules, it makes no sense. It's like volleyball, but there's no boundaries and you mood a lot. But after our night's stay at Chase Cow, we had to say goodbye to our escort, our ranger, and from there on out, we were on our own. That's right, the true journey had just begun, my friends, for you see, up until then our days had been quite easy. This was our first 5 Mile day, a first real hike, and we took our journey all the way from Chase Cow over to Cottonwood Canyon. The scenery was actually quite beautiful, much like this. But the journey was certainly tiresome, and at the end of the 5 miles, we were quite winded. When we arrived at Cottonwood Canyon, the first thing we noticed was the campsite was not where it was supposed to be. There's always a map whenever you arrive at a site, and we couldn't find it. After about 30 minutes looking, we came to the conclusion that we found maybe a site. So naturally, one of our people scouted out the nearest water filtration system, which unfortunately for us, a large animal, bear, mountain lion, had cut the wires to the water filtration system, and our only source of water within a mile was broken. So we sent some of our scouts further down the trail to see if they could find anything. While they were away at that, we set up camp. And if it doesn't sound like this campsite's off already, what with the large animal attack as well as it not being in the right spot, let me just solidify it more. We set up our tents on this incline that just shot up to this red roof on a hill. What was off about this red roof was that the sides had been dug out. Now what this means, and that I didn't realize at the time, was, once again, a large animal, probably bear, had been trying to mess with it and get into the area. Okay. Should have taken more hints and signs from this, and when the water crew got back, they said that they found a filtration pump about a mile down the road. This would mean that we'd have to hike an additional 2 miles just to go get some water for the crew. We then spent the evening playing cards. We cleaned up and hung up the bear bags before bed. And almost like a ritual, while we were putting up our bear bags, singing our bear songs, which at this point we developed songs that we would sing about the bear bags, that most of the words include the word bear. Here, I'll actually read one to you. We have a lot here. We have Amazing Bear, Star Spangled Bear, Bear Taps, which is just taps, but bear. Bear, bear, bear. I mean, really, if you just look at the lyrics, it's just bear, actually. Most of these songs, we just replace nouns or adjectives with the word bear. And almost like we were trying to summon it. As the sun was setting and we were doing our bear rituals, we summoned a bear. Not just a bear, 2 bears. That night was the night I learned bears are loud as fuck. I didn't realize, up until this point, what a bear sounded like. And over the ridgeline where we slept on, there was a mother bear and her cub, just chilling, getting a little curious about us. They were so loud. I'm not saying they were loud as in they were rowdy, like they were like angry. No, they were just breathing. They were just grunting. It sounded like there was what I imagined a bear sounding like, just right next to my ear going, quite frankly, piss-worthy. This is when I believe we found our culprit for who had tampered with the wires, for who had been digging out underneath the outhouse. I should have known. So they must be Pooh Bears too, the worst kind. We tried to fend them off, and it ultimately looked like they weren't trying to bother us. That was until we went to bed. And that's when the bears got curious. Those curious bears, those curious bears. When I lied down to get some shut-eye, I got no eye, actually. In fact, I was all eye. My eyes were completely open all night because we could hear the bears migrating. First, migrated over to the outhouse, their favorite spot, where we heard them digging. You're not supposed to be near the outhouse. You're actually supposed to be pretty far from it, but because the campsite was scuffed, we were about 20 feet from it. Our protocol for whenever a bear is around is make it known that there is a big presence there to be contended with. So the tactic is, I'm just gonna do what they do. Hey bear. Hey bear. Hey bear. Hey bear. Hey bear. We would slowly work our way into a full group yell, and everybody would just be yelling it. And this night, it did not work. After yelling hey bear for what feels like forever, we heard the noise stop, and we heard it kind of... So I went to bed, but then my tent mate wakes up and goes, hey bear. And I feel on the part of the tent that my head's facing, and I see just a big old shadow pass by. The bear was walking between our tents. Where my head is. Imagine if it just tripped. Imagine it just fell. I would have died. What if it liked the smell of my sweat? And so we start doing the yelling. We start doing the process of saying, hey bear, hey bear, hey bear, until we hear it move away. It was all night. I did not sleep a wink. I'd say that campsite experience was the most, not terrible, like it was an adventure. I had a good time. It was the most frightening experience for sure. So we woke up and none of us got eaten, fortunately, but I did not appreciate being that close to bears for that long. Well, the night had concluded and we finally left Cottonwood Canyon. We then walked a mile down towards the filtration system area and then back up the other side of the canyon towards our conservation site. On any Philmont Trek, you have a conservation day, maybe 2. And basically, you spend a part of that day giving back to the environment that you're graciously being allowed to enjoy. Our conservation work for that day was pretty interesting. We got to move some rocks from one place to another place that would eventually be moved into a river for river restoration. It's important to take care of the rivers there. Previously, there were timber companies that would take all the trees up, which is why you actually have such an issue with fires in the area, because the trees that are there right now aren't actually strong enough to deal with fire, and so they all burn down and the ecosystem's all balanced off. That's why you get such big fires. Additionally, because they're like that, the sediment runs down and messes with the river in the middle, causing the river to shift, ultimately leading to a higher cause of flood, which, while we were working on conservation, we did learn a story about where there was a flash flood that went through and killed a camper who couldn't get out of their tent in time. So, doing restoration projects and working on the environment is important, not only for the growth of the environment, but also for the safety of campers. If humans didn't mess with nature, nature wouldn't mess with humans as much. It's still dangerous. Lightning can strike you. You can fall. Gravity works. Animals are hungry. But the trees and plants and water are less angry. Or they would be.